Hi everyone, it's Sandy Holterhouse, and this is our last class, class 5, plant-based diets, exploring vegan, vegetarian, and plant-based options. And today we'll be talking about nutrients of concern. So we'll go ahead and get started. You've already seen this chart before, but just wanted to flash it up here again. These are the nutrients we are most concerned about. I did mention iodine before, but you can get that through iodized salt in your diet, so keeping a little bit of that salt in the diet. We did discuss protein in the last class, so we're going to jump on into iron. So iron, the RDA, recommended dietary allowance for iron, is 8 milligrams a day for men and postmenopausal women, or 18 milligrams a day for premenopausal women. And there's a couple different types of sources of iron, and those would be our heme iron, which come from our animal sources, and those are easily absorbed in the body, more readily absorbed. And then we also have our non-heme or plant sources of iron, and those aren't as well absorbed. So a couple of things you can do here if you are embarking on this plant-based diet is to add a source of vitamin C when you're having iron-rich foods. So maybe you're having, a spinach salad. If you could add some peppers or some mandarin oranges or something like that to that spinach salad, that can help you to absorb that iron from that salad better. And they also recommend that you actually double the RDA for your intake if you are only eating non-heme or plant sources. So that would be about 16 milligrams a day for men and postmenopausal women, and about 36 milligrams a day for premenopausal women. So a tall order for getting in a lot of iron. And I'll show you some sources and some other things you can do on the next page. So pescatarian sources, if you are willing to eat fish in the diet, clams, oysters, mussels, shellfish have some good amounts of iron in them. Our vegetarian sources would be oatmeal, beans, tofu, lentils, molasses, spinach, whole wheat bread, brown rice, and eggs are a great source if you're an lacto-ovo-vegetarian or an ovo-vegetarian where you eat eggs. And just to keep in mind that there are certain things that can slow iron absorption. So phytates, which we find in our whole grains and our legumes. So it's really good if you're eating beans, peas, lentils, those types of things, to add a source of vitamin C again. Calcium-rich products and supplements can interfere with iron absorption. So if you're taking a supplement or you're drinking milk or having calcium-rich foods, you might want to have them separate from your iron-rich foods, or at least part of them during the day, so that you can help to increase the absorption of your iron. Polyphenols, such as those found in coffee and tea and wine, can inhibit iron absorption. So again, trying to have those types of drinks away from your meals that are rich in iron to help decrease the difficulties with the absorption. And here's just some information on cooking in a cast iron skillet and how that can help increase your iron intake. So this is a great hack for anyone that has low iron. Maybe you're going through chemo, or you have digestive issues where you might have some bleeding and your iron tends to be lower. You can cook in a cast iron skillet, and that can help to bring up the amount of iron that you're getting in food. And I posted here on this side of the page the types of foods that were actually very highly increased in iron by cooking them in a cast iron skillet. So as you can see, applesauce was raised from 0.35 milligrams up to 7.38 milligrams, so almost your whole day's supply just by cooking in a cast iron skillet. And if you look down at the bottom, baked cornbread went from 0.67 to about 0.86. So close to maybe a 20% change there. And what they've determined as these things over here on the right side of the page will help to increase the iron content of the food. So if they're moist and acidic foods like applesauce, that will absorb more iron. If you have a new cast iron skillet, that's going to put off more iron, release more iron into the food than an older skillet. If you stir the food in the pan, that will pick up more iron. And if you cook the food for longer periods of time, that will also pick up more iron. So that all makes sense. I did want to show you just down here in the right-hand corner, the Lucky Iron fish. You can pick these up on Amazon if you like. And you can add this little cast iron fish to soups or stews that you're making or casseroles, and that will help to absorb and increase the iron amount that you're getting in those foods as well. Moving on to zinc, the RDA for men is 11 milligrams per day, 8 milligrams per day for women. It's mainly found again in our animal sources, our meat, fish, dairy, and eggs. And I did put a list up here from the NIH, National Institute of Health, their health professional fact sheet. And anyone can go out there and find these fact sheets, and it will give you a top listing of foods that are high in certain nutrients. So I did highlight over there on the right-hand side the different vegan sources or plant sources of the zinc that you can, foods you can use to increase zinc in the diet. And I just also wanted to mention that there is a balancing act between copper and zinc in the body. They both compete for the same receptor sites in the body. So if you overdo on zinc, for example, say you're taking a lot of zinc lozenges and you have a cold, you will actually end up over competing with the zinc for the receptor sites. The copper will lose out and you'll actually end up excreting more copper. So that can be a problem because we do want to try to keep those in balance in the body, and that gets harder, more difficult as we age. But I will try to put an article out on the group feed so that you can read about that or learn more about that if you're interested. Omega-3s. So there's three main types of omega-3 fatty acids, are EPA, DHA, and ALA. And we need to consume all three sources in the diet. They're all essential. The plant sources that are rich in ALA. So the RDA for the ALA is about 1.6 grams per day for men, about 1.1 grams per day for women. And some of those sources of these plant omega-3s would be chia seed, hemp seed, flax seeds, or their oils. Walnuts are another great source of omega-3s. Edamame and kidney beans can also be used to help up that plant source of omega-3s. And then fatty fish, they contain EPA and DHA. There's no RDA established for the EPA and DHA that we take in, but generally 250 to 500 milligrams per day of combined EPA and DHA is considered to be a good amount. You can find, if you're willing to eat fish, good amounts of EPA and DHA in our mackerel, salmon, sea bass, oysters, sardines, shrimp, and trout. So if you like fish or are willing to add fish into your diet, great sources. Seaweed and algae such as nori, spirulina, chlorella, they contain EPA and DHA, but the amounts will vary considerably. So if you don't eat fish twice per week, it is actually recommended that you take a fish oil capsule. If you're trying to stay away from fish, the algal supplement or the algal oil is recommended for getting in those omega-3s. So that's what a lot of vegans will use to help increase those omega-3s in the diet. So omega-3s here continued. Just for example, if you're trying to get that 1.1 to 1.6 grams per day from the ALA, a teaspoon of flaxseed oil could it be added to a smoothie. A half a tablespoon of flaxseed could certainly add that to oatmeal or a smoothie. 5 walnut halves for as part of a snack, a healthy snack, or 2 teaspoons of chia seed. The algal oil, again, that's a vegan vegetarian source of EPA and DHA. There are many choices online, but generally you should look for a dose of about 500 milligrams per day. And just for example there at the bottom, to get that 250 to 500 milligrams per day combined of EPA and DHA, they recommend 6 to 7 ounces of salmon per week. And you can glance through that on the others. Or at the bottom, if you're going to eat shrimp most days, that'd be 5 to 6 ounces of shrimp per day to equal that amount of DHA and EPA. If you're watching cholesterol in the diet, then that might not be a good choice, as shrimp does contain a little bit more cholesterol. And again, the chart here over on the right-hand side will show those numbers for ALA, the DHA in milligrams, and the EPA. So as you can see, you get a good amount of DHA and EPA in 3 ounces of salmon. So that's why you don't have to eat it quite as frequently. Calcium, the RDA for is 1,000 milligrams per day, but if you're over 50 for women, it's 1,200 milligrams per day, or over 70 for age men, 1,200 milligrams a day. So if you are having milk and dairy or milk, dairy, and eggs in your diet, the vegetarians can help to mitigate calcium deficiency with the inclusion of milk and dairy products. Vegan calcium sources would include the fortified soy and nut milks. You'll make sure they're fortified. Fortified orange juice often contains calcium. Soybeans, edamame, tofu, that tofu that's made with calcium chloride or calcium carbonate, and tempeh are good sources. White and navy beans, black beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, and lentils. So those legumes are great sources of calcium as well. Almonds and Brazil nuts, sesame tahini that's made with sesame seeds, chia seeds and flax seeds, ancient grains such as amaranth and teff, seaweed, wakame, and kelp. And some of these you can purchase, and if you're making broths or soups at homes, you can add some wakame or kelp to your broth and make it a little bit more nutrient rich, so that can help increase some of those minerals, including calcium. Dark green leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables, including broccoli, figs, oranges, black currants, and blackberries are sources of calcium, as is blackstrap molasses, a source of good calcium and iron as well. So some calcium through plant sources, and I just threw up a couple things here with the nutrient labels alongside here. So if you do drink the Tropicana orange juice, have a cup of that a day with the calcium added, that gives you about 350 milligrams, or about a third of what the normal amount is that you need if you're at 1,000 milligrams. Blackstrap molasses, if you wanted to add that to oatmeal and add in a banana, you get about 120 milligrams of calcium in 1 tablespoon. And chia seed in 2 tablespoons. If you were to make like a chia seed pudding, something like that, you could get about 180 milligrams. And you could, of course, put yogurt or milk into your chia seed recipe as well to help bump that up a bit. Vitamin D. So the RDA for adults is 15 micrograms, or 600 IUs, international units. If you're over 70, they recommend 20 micrograms per day, or 800 IUs. So when you do the math there, 25 micrograms equals about 1,000 IUs, or 40 IUs equals 1 microgram. So you'll frequently see on, if you're taking a supplement, the amount is given in IUs. So just so you know that conversion, or that you know that there is a conversion. Again, you're going to find vitamin D mainly found in animal sources, salmon, eggs, and shellfish. So vegan sources would include fortified soy, almond, or rice milk, fortified orange juice, fortified cereals, and mushrooms. If they've undergone a UV light process, can actually significantly increase the amount of vitamin D in the mushrooms. So you can check that out when you're purchasing mushrooms to see if they've undergone some UV light. If you're trying to get it through sunshine, 10 to 30 minutes 3 times per week is adequate for most people. And supplements, again, you can find vitamin D supplements in vegan sources. They're available. Again, those would not include your fatty fish sources. If vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, so if you take it with a meal that has fat in it, that helps to increase that absorption. B12, the RDA for men and women aged 19 and over, is 2.4 micrograms per day. We have vegetarian and vegan food sources listed here. If you're vegan, a great source of B12 is fortified nutritional yeast. 1 tablespoon equals about 7.5 micrograms, or about 3 days worth of B12 for you. You want to make sure if you're buying the fortified or nutritional yeast that it is fortified. So make sure it says that on the label. Plant milks and cereals fortified with B12. Nori, which is what you generally see sushi wrapped in, those sheets, the green sheets. 1 sheet is about 1.9 micrograms. So if you're eating, a roll of sushi, that can help to increase that B12. Shiitake mushrooms, again, a good source. If you're lacto-ovo vegetarian, you could certainly dive into some of those milk and dairy choices, or eggs, or pescatarian. Clams, look at the amount there, that you have a good amount of B12 in clams. So almost, close to 10 days worth probably for most people. So if you got clams into your diet a couple times a month, that would be pretty close to getting you where you need to be. Sardines are about right there at that daily amount. Tuna, trout, and salmon. So again, another advantage of being pescatarian that can certainly help to increase and increase the B12 and decrease that risk of deficiency. The organic soy milk I just put down here, and a cup of that, you get about 1.2 micrograms, so about half the day's supply that you need. So you could drink a couple cups of that a day as well. There are cereals that are high in B12. Again, that RDA is 2.4 micrograms, and I listed some here. The Cheerios, the multigrain, the General Mills Total Whole Grain Flakes, and the Post Grape Nuts are all come in at that 2.4 micrograms, so they are up to that amount that you need daily. And then the Post Bran Flakes and Post Raisin Bran are just a little bit lower, but at that 2.16 micrograms per day. So some good choices in fortified cereals that you could add to your diet. So we're coming to the end here of the slides, and just wanted to challenge you one more time. So go ahead and try to figure out how to add some plant-based snack and dessert options. Often in like a diet like the Mediterranean, they're going to be eating nuts or dried fruit or fruit for desserts. So look for some recipes along those lines. Also, for snacks, nuts, peanuts, nut butters, those all can make some really great choices to add to your snack sources for the day. So that's all I have. Thank you for joining me, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks.